Hello, welcome to another episode of Me and the Road. This is episode number 2. And these are stories from my years on the road as a musician and touring musician, and also some studio stories and just musical stories in general that you might find fun and interesting. This is actually a combination of both, studio and the road. This is the story of the writing of Obsession Blues, a song I co-wrote with Michael McDonald back in the mid-90s. Michael had mentioned to me a couple times about wanting to write like a blues rock a la Jimi Hendrix style tune. He had an idea in his head, he said. So we talked about it a couple times, and then finally I said, well, why don't you come out to my place? And I was living in Chatsworth, California at the time, and I had a studio in my house, as I pretty much have for the last 35, 40 years. But anyway, he said, sure. So he came out, and at the time I was using Soundscape Digital as my recording system. So he came out, and I set him up with a keyboard sound. I don't remember what keyboard we used, to be honest with you. It's probably his, what is it? One of the Yamaha keyboards I think he may have brought with him. Anyway, he sort of played the chord figure, the dun, 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 dun. He kind of had that figure already thought out. So he played that for me, and I thought, okay. So I went over and created a drum loop, just of a, just programmed a loop in that we could play to, and I played bass along to him. And then we started mapping out the chords little by little, came up with the verse and then the B section and then the chorus. And it sounded pretty cool. So we laid down the keyboard, the bass, and the drum loop at once. And I didn't put any guitar on it yet because we were just kind of like, we were maybe going to mess around with the lyric a little bit. And Mike just said, well, could I just throw down a vocal real quick just so I had the thought in my head, the melody? So I said, sure. So I set him up a microphone. We both got under headphones. And I witnessed something so amazing I couldn't believe it. I started the recording, and he started to sing, and every word for word to that song, to the lyric to that song, came out of him in one take. Now, mind you, he had never written this down. It was all in his head. And I just looked at him and I went, what is up with that? How do you have that in? He said, well, I've had it in my head for a while, and I kind of knew what I wanted. He sang the entire lyric in one take. Never doing it before, never sitting at a keyboard. It came out that session. I was blown away. I still am to this day, to be honest with you. Anyway, we finished that up. I was trying to calm down from my overwhelmingness. Anyway, I had some ideas in my head, and he mentioned Jimi Hendrix as a reference, that he wanted the guitars to kind of go that direction. So I'm a big Hendrix fan from way back, from when I was a kid. Whichever album All Along the Watchtower was on, I think that's Electric Ladyland, if I'm not mistaken. Just wore that record out. Anyway, so I was familiar with Hendrix's style. I was influenced by him. So Mike left, he went home, and before he left, I said, Mike, do you mind if I play with the arrangement a little bit? Because it was not quite sussed out where the bridge would go and where the chorus was going to fall. And the beauty of digital recording is that you can move things. You can cut a piece out and move it over here or move it around. I didn't do too much of that, but I did do a little bit, added some sections, lengthened them a little bit. Anyway, so I went to put some guitars on. This was after Mike had left. He said, go ahead, knock yourself out, add what you think is necessary. So I went in, and the first thing I played was the guitar figure that follows the keyboard. And I had and Mike sort of had the lick. So I doubled that on the guitar. But the one that I came up with that I thought really starts the song is the doo-doo-doo-doo. That's total Hendrix to me. And so I added that in, and I did like maybe 2 or 3 guitar tracks. And then I did a real drum track. I played real drums on them. It's a pretty funky drum part, not great, but it captured the essence of the song. So anyway, I finished it, I mixed it, and I mixed it to a cassette tape. I think we were still using cassettes back then. This was 1995-ish, mind you. So yeah, we were still using cassette tapes. So I put it away, and then we had a gig not long after that. I remember it was in Santa Rosa, California. We were playing at the Luther Burbank Auditorium up in Santa Rosa. And we were going over to sound check in a van. Our tour manager, Alan, was taking us over there. As we usually do around between 3 or 4 o'clock, we get in the van and we all head over to the gig from the hotel to do our sound checks. And I told Mike, I worked on the song, and I said, do you want to hear it? He goes, yeah, let me hear it. So I had my Walkman with me. So I gave him I queued up the song, gave him my headphones and my Walkman. I said, check it out. So the whole band's in the car, a couple guys in the crew too. And so I was nervous because I didn't know what Mike was going to think. And so he proceeds to put the headphones on, and he's listening. Of course, we can't hear it because he's under headphones. And I'm sitting there just kind of nervously biting my nails, and he starts bopping his head. And please excuse my language, but the first thing out of his mouth was, and he was under headphones, so he said, this is fucking great, fucking great. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he takes the headphones off and he goes, put this in the car stereo. And so he handed it to Alan, and Alan put it in the van stereo and blasted it.
How can I have too much? How can I have too much of something I can't get enough of? No, no, can't get enough of it.
And Mike's was just raving. He just loved it. So I can't tell you what that meant to me, because I knew it was good, but until you get that validation that what you've done is right, it makes it all worthwhile. So anyway, Mike must have listened to it, I swear, half a dozen times. He really, really loved it. And so we went and we did the gig, and I left him with the cassette tape. And that was it for a while. Didn't hear much about it. And I'm trying to remember, I went out to Nashville. I was still living in Los Angeles, and I'd never been to Nashville before. This is my first time out to Nashville. It was in the winter of 1995, close to Christmas. I went out there, and I think we wrote at the same time. Yeah, pretty sure we wrote. Also, we had a writing session. I did my first writing session on Music Row. Those of you who don't know, that's a series of like 2 or 3 streets in downtown Nashville. It's kind of an older home, like, 1920s, 30s homes that a lot of them have been converted into production houses where people write, do demos, or, work on their productions for their records or their management companies or record companies even. And so Mike down there, this is another story I'll save for another time, but that same day we wrote, or that same visit, we wrote No Love to Be Found and Someday You Will. But I'm going to save that for another story because that's a cool story too. Anyway, so another day I was there in this Nashville visit. Tommy Sims had been hired by Michael and Reprise Records, which was Michael's label at the time, division of Warner Brothers. And the cool thing about Obsession Blues was it was sort of the catalyst for that album. It sort of started the ball rolling. I think Mike got real excited about it, and he hired Tommy Sims as one of the producers. I produced 2 songs on that album. Another story, another time. But he hired Tommy Sims. So Tommy booked a session, and I'm trying to remember what studio we used. It might have been the Dugout here in Nashville. I can't remember, but it was the first time I met Dan Needham, which was has been in Mike's drummer since 2013. So it was me on guitar, Mike on, he played a Wurlitzer piano, electric piano, Dan on drums, and Tommy Sims played bass guitar. And we cut that track as a 4-piece, Obsession Blues. And the cool thing was Tommy really liked the demo too that I made, that Mike and I made. And so he used that as a template to kind of let everybody know this is what we're going for. So we followed that demo pretty religiously to kind of get the feel of that ended up on the final album of Blue Obsession. And that day, I think I went back and I also cut. You know what? I'm thinking about it now. I think we also worked on No Love to Be Found and Someday You Will on this very same session, all in one day. But I added a guitar solo to Obsession Blues, which was later replaced by Will Osley. Is that his first name? I know his last name's Osley, who has since passed away. I feel terrible not remembering his first name. He ended up doing the guitar solo that ended up in the record, which I was a little disappointed in, but it's a good solo. I liked mine too, but you know, you make decisions in the studio and whatever feels right is what you go with. But I played all the other guitars and the acoustic guitar I added on there as well. And the rest is history. When the album was finished, that song was, we did that song in our live show for quite a while, even up till just a couple of years ago before COVID. We were still doing the song on the set now and then, not as much as we were back when the album came out, because the album came out in 2000, I believe, on Reprise Record. Actually came out on Ramp, because during that whole rigmarole with Reprise, Reprise actually opted not to pick up Mike's contract. So that was a bummer, but that's another story again. But Ramp Records was formed by Michael, Jeff Bridges, and Chris Polonis. So that album, Blue Obsession, which had Obsession Blues, came out on Ramp Records. And it sold fairly well. And it was a very popular song in the set. I think it's unlike anything Mike's ever done, because we were playing basically quartet, blues rock, all out, balls to the wall. We didn't hold back on that one. You couldn't. So that was always a fun song to sing. Anyway, I don't know if there's any more fun facts about that, but that's the story of Obsession Blues, which I've been super proud of to this day. And I'll tell you more about that album, because there's some other cool stories that come into play on that record. That was a fun album to work with. Tommy was one of the producers. I was one of the producers. David Pack produced a track, and I think Chris Polonis, he produced the Neil Young song, Down by the River. And but Tommy, he produced the majority of the album, including Obsession Blues, No Love to Be Found, Someday You Will, All I Need, Meaning of Love. Tommy's just a beautifully creative man, great musician. But I produced Where Would I Be Now? And Build Upon It. Those were my 2 contributions for production, and I co-wrote 4 songs which was Obsession Blues, No Love to Be Found, Someday You Will, and Build Upon It. So I had a big involvement on that album. Anyway, that's enough of me and enough of my yakking. Hope you enjoyed this second episode of Me and the Road. And if this is on YouTube by the time you see it, please like it, share it. Every little bit helps. Peace and love to you all. This is right around Thanksgiving, a couple days away here. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody. God bless you all. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.